So, if we don't...
All right.
Okay.
Perfect timing, actually.
Perfect timing.
Welcome, Wei.
Hey there, guys.
Can you hear us?
Yeah, can you hear? I can hear you. Can you hear me okay?
Loud and clear.
Perfect. So we already
Excellent.
made an intro for you. So we
Awesome.
are looking forward to see what you have to share with us.
Likewise.
Thank you so much.
Perfect. So the stage is all yours.
Oh, awesome. Thanks, guys. Hey, everyone. Thanks for taking the time to hear my speech. This is a very unique forum. This is my very first, I'd say, virtual conference. So I'm super, super excited to represent Binance here. I think as a whole, I think one of the most exciting space I think right now is actually India and blockchain, especially with sort of, I would say, a lot of things being a lot of activities within sort of the blockchain space being accelerated by this sort of work from home lockdown virus situation. I think for Binance specifically, for anyone who do not know, we are a blockchain ecosystem. We view ourselves as an infrastructure builder, leveraging sort of blockchain technology to really deliver the freedom of money. And with that sort of underlying Binance, we have the largest digital assets or cryptocurrency exchange in the world in Binance.com. But at the same time, we've also sort of spent a lot of time and resources in building the products and making investments to build up the entire sort of blockchain ecosystem. We have our own sort of, I would say, Binance chain, which is a blockchain that we've built sort of and are continuing to sort of advance efforts on in terms of helping to facilitate our mission. And I think a lot of times what we talk about when we talk about the freedom of money, it mainly has to do with sort of I would say, goes behind the whole mission of why Bitcoin or how Bitcoin was created in the first place. Which is basically to basically give individuals back a control of, or give individuals a control of their own sort of their own value or their own money, and I think what Binance hope to do sort of in our future is basically create the infrastructure, with the exchange being one, I think our own blockchain being one, and then a lot of the products we're developing on top of it. For example, like our BUSD stablecoin or some of our regional fiat exchanges, as well as our core investments and wallets like Trust Wallet and other types of blockchain projects, is to allow for individuals to basically not only to control their own assets, their own money, but also to invest and to create wealth and to share their wealth and to send their wealth. And it's kind of the truest sense of that is basically if you look at our charity initiative in Binance Charity Foundation, we're actually trying to achieve sort of end-to-end from the donor to the benefit, to track all of that through blockchain. So I think there's a lot of tremendous amount of benefits, and I think especially once we go into looking at India, I think Binance itself has had investments in sort of three of the sort of the top three sort of leading or most well recognized Indian-based sort of blockchain projects in terms of Matic, Marlin, and also WazirX. I think Binance are key strategic investors in all three of those projects. Matic we brought to the world, to the crypto world, through our sort of Binance Launchpad platform through an IEO, and Marlin was a Binance incubated project, and then also WazirX was an acquisition that we made, and then I sort of did a trip to India in November with our team to basically looking at the situation there, and I think looking at India today, is that for blockchain and for cryptocurrency is actually quite a different world versus I would say back in November. I think last year, I think most people or the entrepreneurs we came across were still, I think, hesitant in terms of dipping their toes into crypto assets and blockchain. But I think post the decision in February, March, I think it actually has driven, India has actually been sort of completely turned and switched in terms of not just in terms of interest, but actually in terms of driving some of the demand as well. So I think, and I think this is where it leads us sort of to announce a couple of key initiatives that I hope to do here, which is we are actually setting up a fund very specifically to invest in India. So I think last month we announced a blockchain for India fund, which is a joint fund set up by Binance and WazirX. And I think after looking at a lot of the applicants into that fund, we actually came up with something what we hope is actually more specific and more apt, I think, for the current marketplace, giving it where it stands, which is our what I call the Polaris Initiative, which sits under our Blockchain for India fund. And what we hope to do is actually provide more holistic support, not just in terms of investment, but actually marketing expertise, the existing sort of tools that sits under the Binance ecosystem, including technical support from our Binance X developer program, as well as an education in terms of onto sort of the various APIs that Binance.com has to enable entrepreneurs to develop into. I think, and in terms of there's two subsets under the Polaris program, which are Kickstart and Blitzscale. And that would depend on which stage of development the teams are in. The Polaris Kickstart program is actually providing funding of between $5,000 to $20,000, and it's there to provide very early stage financing for teams and individuals who have an innovative idea or concept and have yet to have the resources to develop a proof of concept sort of in the real world. So I think that's what we call the Polaris Kickstart program. The next is actually the Polaris Blitzscale program. For the Blitzscale program, the funding size is anywhere between $20,000 to $100,000. And this program is to provide funding for teams or individuals who already have a working prototype and is actually looking forward to ramp up scale in a real world sort of deployment. Obviously, sort of underneath the original Blockchain for India program, which is basically an investment, either equity or tokens, ranging from $100,000 to $5 million. So I think these are the various initiatives that we have currently undergoing in India, and I look forward to sort of sharing further with you guys as the program develops. Yeah.
Very much for joining us, and thank you very much for sharing all of your thoughts on India and your basically plans for it. Georgia, you want to take over?
Yes, we have Nico here with us. Just one moment. Just granted him access. So Nico, if you can see us and hear us, it would be awesome.
Perfect. Thank you very much. Well, it's an incredible honor actually to have you here, and I must say I already wrote it in the chat. I have a little bit of a fanboy moment, if I have to admit it, because I mean, what you have achieved over since you joined Binance and you being in the position you are, and from where you're coming in terms of corporate forehead and now running the show there, especially for the financial part, is just incredible, and you have my deepest respect. But I would like to ask, on my end, I have been burning for quite a while, so I hope you'll allow me to do this. To start us off, when you look at projects now, especially with announcing Polaris, congratulations to this, by the way, what are the key indicators you guys focus on during the due diligence process? Like if you would have to name a couple of them.
Yeah, I mean, I'm a big believer in an entrepreneur. I'm a big believer in investing in the individual, and then and I think so. So obviously, the most important thing I look at is actually who am I talking to? Like, who is this individual that is pitching me, or who is this individual or team? Where does this team of individuals that sits in front of us here today? That's trying, and what is their background? Like, how do they get to where they are today? And where do they want to go to? I think that's one of the key things, because with individuals you can back them multiple times, but having them to have an opportunity to pitch in front of me or in front of my team, I think is a very unique. It's sort of, I would say, sort of like, it's the first date. And it could be the start of,
Sure.
like this, because in entrepreneurs, one of the unique things about them is that sometimes, maybe sometimes, because a lot of times with entrepreneurs that people, I would say that's like 99% of the people in the world aren't really cut out to be entrepreneurs, because you have to take a lot of crap from a lot of people. And you have to withstand like all kinds of shitstorm in terms of in the work that you're trying to do and the product you're trying to build. And there's a certain type of I would say certain type of characters that at least I think that should exist in an entrepreneur. So I think that's sort of the first one. I think the second one is what is the problem you're trying to solve? Like, is this a real pain point that you're solving, or are you just embellishing something that already exists, but just making it looking prettier? I think in that case, you're not really solving a pain point. You're just you're just building. You're upgrading an existing product or service, which is okay if there's a market for it, right? If the bigger the pain point, then obviously the bigger the potential use case in the real world. And what I think what's really, really unique about India in this situation is that there's a lot of pain points. And there's a lot, and I think but what we've looked at is basically some of these things could be bigger if we can sort of provide the initial seed capital for it to start snowballing, for it to start rolling, right? That's why I think provide the seeds, put them in the hands of the right people. Provide the seed capital and put them in the hands of the right people, and then make sure they're basically applying their skill set and the money into a pain point that maybe they can solve. And I think that's sort of the I would say these are the two key things I think I would personally look at.
I think people also, if I may add to this, people also need to be ready in a way for larger sums of capital at some point of time, because there's a lot of ways where people get money and they don't really know what to do with it, what you mentioned earlier. So using the seed and using the Polaris model will give you also the opportunity to have different funnel models, so you can go into different directions, see how people are going to react in order to tackle those pain points. So now, looking in India now, and again, as your experience now as a CFO, can you be the biggest recommendation you would give when it comes to talking about your finances? Because this, in my opinion, is an internal pain point, which I have had to cope with numerous times with different projects.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, in terms of, so for me, my personal background is I've actually been CFO. Binance is my 4.5, I would say, CFO job. I was full-time at 3 and then part-time at 1 before I joined Binance. And have worked at sort of companies ranging from Series A to also taking companies public on NASDAQ. So I was a public company CFO on NASDAQ, a Chinese company listed on NASDAQ for about three years. So I've seen sort of the various pain points in terms of managing companies' financials in a developing economy in China and in the US. And one of the biggest, I would say, how do I want to put it? There's a couple of key things that I think that would be quite applicable, I think, to India, and especially if you're dealing with crypto, which is basically minimize if you can. And one of the beauties of crypto is like minimize your presence in the fiat world. and stay in the crypto world.
It's well said.
So that you minimize your pain points of dealing with finances. I mean, because if you're a startup CEO, and if you have to spend 30% of your time sort of, dealing with auditors and dealing with bank accounts and dealing with, God knows, like forms and tax departments and company setup, then you're not really allocating your time efficiently, and you're not allocating your time appropriately. And I think that's one of the beauties of crypto is that you can track it, you can send it, you can use it. And that's why we're like, if the more adoption we drive with crypto, then basically I think it's actually a very unique opportunity for founders to actually spend 100% of the time on what they're trying to do, which is to basically build a product, right? Build a product that solves a problem, rather than sort of dealing with bureaucracy for the first 2 weeks or first 2 months, right? Set up your company, open a bank account, and then registering that company. Whereas like before you know it, you're not really spending your time building the product. And I think that's something that 3 months is a long time, right? And that's 3 months of burn you just spent. So I think that's something as a CFO is like allocate your resources allocate your resources in where it counts, into where it counts.
But into what Wei said, because it's really important that everybody should remember those words. Are there any words or thoughts you want to share when it comes to your ideas and approaches for India now that you guys are going to focus on in, let's say, the next, it is almost until the end of the month, roughly 60 months, in order to make the most out of this opportunity? Because, I mean, the fund announcement, amazing, right time, perfect timing. I'm sure you guys are going to find an incredible team to run this and to find the right opportunities. Plus Polaris now it's a good construct, which is going to allow to reach a lot of people. So.
Yeah, I mean, so quick answer is we're both hiring and we're investing. So we need and we would like to have, and we want a strong local presence on the ground. So and I think that's something that we're actively looking to both hire and to invest. So if there are any talents or that are interested in either work for this program or talents that want to raise capital from this program, I think it's helloindia@binance.com.
All right.
I think you've actually come to the right place here.
Yeah, it's really easy.
All right, so
it should be. But thank you very much for taking the time.
No problem. Thank you, guys.
Thank you very much, Wei. If we can ask just one question from the audience, maybe, would you be interested?
Sure.
I'll just pick one. So how can entrepreneurs in the crypto space build products which not only keep the customers happy, but also the regulators? Well done for this one.
It's the hardest questions I've faced in a while. Because it's too divergent. It's actually, all joking aside, it's two divergent forces. Regulators are going to regulate. If you're a hammer, everything you see is a nail. The regulator is going to regulate. I don't think you never like happy regulators is like an oxymoron, right? Like I don't really see like happy regulators really doesn't exist. Because but the thing is the key thing is actually for both regulators and for users, you just view them all as potential users, right? Regulators are people too, right? They have pain points in their life in terms of their understanding of it. So that's why I think within Binance, we actually have a pretty big, I would say, education initiative called Binance Academy. And I think it's I'm not sure the exact website, but it should be on Binance.com. It's Binance.vision. I think that's the website. On Binance Academy, we basically have a huge wiki of all things crypto, all things blockchain, and hopefully we should have an education page aimed specifically at regulators who shits on Bitcoin. So I mean I think education is probably the biggest thing. for that. I think the biggest thing we can do here for both regulators and for users. Yeah, that would be my quick answer.
All right then. Thank you very much, Wei. It was a great pleasure having you here, and we hope that you will stay and check the pitches now.
Yeah, for sure. I'm sticking around.
All right, awesome. Thank you very much.
Awesome. Thanks, guys.